The river city of Brisbane has many attractions. The corner of Mains and Kessels Road in the southern suburb of Nathan is not one of them. But in just over 8 years' time, this is where the world will be watching. The stadium, just to the right of me, will undergo an estimated $1.5 billion transformation to host the athletics of the 35th Olympiad. Now, why this suburban ground was chosen seemingly out of nowhere is a story of both local politics and international pressure.
The winner is Sydney.
A lot has changed since Australia last won the rights to host the Olympic and Paralympic Games. When was the last time a summer Olympic Games was profitable?
On the overall level, where the revenues were higher than the costs. The last time that we saw this, I think, were the Sydney Olympics 2000, right?
So over 20 years ago?
Yeah, quite a while ago.
A series of extraordinary cost blowouts have since made the Games increasingly unattractive.
Hosting the Olympics creates a fiscal deficit of anywhere from 10 to 20 or $30 billion. And more cities are realizing that.
That's in part why the International Olympic Committee ditched its expensive bidding process and placed a new emphasis on moderation. Why will this time be different?
It's a completely different situation, effectively bringing down the cost of hosting the Games, allowing existing venues to be used.
The idea is we shape the Olympics to the city, not vice versa.
The Queensland Games will be the first to be held under this new norm. And although the IOC didn't require a new stadium, the Queensland organisers thought this would be a great opportunity to build one, as the state arguably lacks a world-class facility.
It'll be modern, it'll be high-tech, it'll be sustainable, there will not be a bad seat.
Plan A was to demolish and rebuild Brisbane's tired and ageing Gabba Stadium, a $3 billion project that originally had bipartisan support. But as the plan attracted increasing local controversy and became mired in political squabbling, the IOC intervened. In February, the committee's Australian Vice President, John Coates, dropped a few choice quotes to Brisbane's Courier Mail.
We should abandon the Gabba and we should look for another site for the athletics. It just doesn't stack up.
The Sydney-based IOC Vice President also suggested, amongst other things, the athletics venue should be here, the Queensland Sport and Athletics Centre in suburban Nathan.
Winking at the crowd right now.
A venue whose heyday was the Commonwealth Games in 1982.
Little Joey's.
6 weeks later, with a change of premier, John Coates' musings became official Queensland government policy.
I am supporting the option that was put forward by John Coates in his submission. That proposal gives us 3 upgraded stadiums and the arena, all within the existing funding envelope.
The Queensland Premier went against the independent advice he'd commissioned from a former Brisbane mayor, who found building a new $3.4 billion stadium in this parkland, on the other side of the Brisbane River, represents best value for money. Graham Quirk says although Brisbane will still need a new world-class stadium, he understands why John Coates intervened.
He is the custodian of the Olympic brand, and he was very concerned and expressed this to me, that the Olympics brand was being badly damaged by the public debate, particularly the one centring around the Gabba. And so his job, as he saw it, was to protect that brand. And he was going to do whatever it took, basically, to protect it.
John Coates declined 7:30's request for an interview. His intervention comes as no surprise to Professor Martin Müller, a Swiss-based international authority who has crunched the numbers of past Olympics.
They are selling the reputation of the Games to sponsors, to fans, to viewers on television. And they have had bad experience over the last couple of games. So what they want to do is reduce the risk.
Apart from stadiums, Games organisers also have to tackle transportation in a heavily car-dependent region. Transport expert Professor Matt Burke is trying to work out the best ways of connecting Olympic venues stretching from the Gold to the Sunshine Coasts. The Olympics are going to be held on what is effectively a 200-kilometre long strip city. That's going to be quite a challenge, isn't it, as far as transport's concerned?
This intercity games is the first time it's ever been done for summer Olympic and Paralympics. So for us transport planners, it's scaring us witless.
So can it be done?
It can be done if people work with us.
I know that transportation is a really, really big headache in Paris, and it's an even bigger headache right now in Los Angeles.
US sports economist Professor Andrew Zimbalist has documented Olympic blowouts over the past decades.
Invariably, those transportation routes that are being created are not the ideal ones. Sometimes they might be useful, but they're not the ideal ones. They're not the prioritized ones for the local economic development and social needs.
This is where the 2032 opening and closing ceremonies will be held, Brisbane's Suncorp Stadium. Now, they're unlikely to be the traditional Olympic ceremony because it's difficult to see all the athletes of the world marching around the rectangular football pitch. So the organisers will have to do something different. And doing something different may well be the legacy of the Queensland Games.
The legacy of the Olympic Games can be both a material legacy, which is what most people think about, it's bricks and mortar, but people underestimate the immaterial legacy.
There's things we could be doing. London converted a lot of streets to cycling and walking. How do we retrofit the city a bit to make that work for the Olympics, but just make Brisbane a better place, make the Gold Coast a better city?
In a few months' time, the next Summer Games will open in Paris. In 4 years after that, in Los Angeles. And that will mark the end of an era. Brisbane may not have the iconic status of these cities, but its games are arguably more important for the Olympic movement.
Whatever happens in LA and Paris is not necessarily replicable in other cities. But what happens in Brisbane, particularly since it's the test case about the new policies, I think a lot of people will be watching very closely.